Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome for the first time. My name is Rachel from Hersey Kiss, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how I edit my Instagram photos. Just for starters, I want to show you what my Instagram looked like when I got started and tell you a little bit about how I've kind of come to my editing style. These are some photos from my feed right now. I have really been working hard to kind of develop that creamy, natural, but a little bit enhanced type of vibe for my feed, and it has been like so hard to figure it out. I don't know why it was so difficult for me to learn, but it probably took like 2 years for me to actually figure out how to do this type of editing. So if you guys are interested, I am going to show you step by step how I start to do that, and I'll put my phone recording up there too. I'm going to start the recording now. Okay, so I have some example photos I'll show you, but let me just quickly show you guys what my feed used to look like. We're going to scroll all the way back here. Okay, we're going way back. I've been through so many phases with my Instagram, it's so funny. So this is what my feed looked like. Obviously when I started my Instagram, I was not doing anything like blogger related at the time. So yeah, just like whatever I wanted kind of for a while. And then I got onto this whole trend with like the side white spaces. That was funny. And then here I was like, rainbow is my theme, so every single one's going to be like a different color, and I really just edited it however I wanted, like for each photo. And then I did that for a while, just doing like literally whatever editing I wanted, and it looked messy. It was not cohesive at all. And then here's where I decided I wanted my feed to be like black and white instead of rainbow, so I started removing all of the yellows from photos, and honestly it got pretty like dramatic. Like if you look at this is not natural whatsoever, and I just did that in Facetune where I did the whiten tool, or I did like a black and white filter. Yeah, like this I removed all the color from everywhere except the green and the orange and like my shirt. That was a lot. Yeah, I just think this looks pretty unnatural. I went to Disney and I made the sky gray. I had that for a really long time where I was sticking to the black and white, and then I realized I wanted it to look more natural, casual, kind of that like effortless vibe a lot of bloggers have. So I was trying to learn. I spent a really long time trying to figure it out, and I was just so hooked into that like black and white type of thing. So then it was around here when I started learning about presets, and I went on Etsy, I went on all these different websites, and I was buying so many different presets trying to find something that looked natural, and I don't think I ever really found something that worked. But as you can see, it got a little more colorful than before, but it's still not really like the warm kind of creamy colors that I have now. This is when I stopped using presets. I realized a lot of them weren't working for my feed, and I just didn't like the way the colors were coming out. So I started editing them manually, which is what I do now. And this is kind of when I started getting into that. As you can see, I'm still learning. Like a lot of these don't really match each other, but we're still kind of going through it. Even here, this was this fall. I feel like I really got the hang of it at the start of 2020. Like this is very cluttered too, and that's a whole different thing about getting like the aesthetic you want. Finding all of the different like filler spaces around you to include. But here is when I feel like this is like the feed people are talking about when they ask about how I got or how I do the editing that I do in the feed that I have. So there's no presets. I edit them all by myself, and I would say the top things that really matter for these photos is lighting and the outfit and the background. I think when they really all like come together, you can edit it so easily, and it's just really simple. So a lot of these are stuff that I've been shooting at home now in quarantine. And my guest bedroom has a lot of natural light, so I'm like obsessed with shooting in there. And today I'm going to be editing a few of these photos and a few other ones to show you guys kind of how it works. So this is my editing app list. I mostly use Facetune, Retouch, Lightroom, and UNUM. Or I don't know, maybe it's UNUM. I say UNUM. So these are some of the photos I just want to take you guys through. I'm going to show you some good and bad examples of things I took and I tried to edit. So this photo, as you can see, it's very blue. The new iPhones have started doing like the dark mode thing where when there's like shadows or the sun is from behind you, it'll start lighting up the shadows and the dark spots. So for something like this, it made like my black pants, oh my god, it made my black pants super blue, like my hair looks blue, everything's kind of off. And those photos I have found are really hard to edit once it starts doing that. So when you're shooting, you and your person who's taking your photos should know when that's happening and kind of like cut it out, because I have just the worst time trying to edit things like that. I would rather just have it like in a normal photo file, and I can't figure out how to shut that off on my iPhone because I would just get rid of that feature altogether if I could. Except it's fun in the dark for like silly things, but not for like my feet. This is a pretty good example. The light is coming from overhead, but it's natural light. There's a lot of like space around me. The only thing I would do is kind of to clean up some of these like busy areas. Sorry. I would clean up like this. I removed this pipe when I posted it. I think I got rid of that mirror and these like clumps on the wall. Just things like that to make it a little bit simpler. So this one I actually did post on my feed. I like this photo, so I'm going to do an indoor and an outdoor example. This is going to be the indoor example. There is a lot of like yellow light. You can see my skin looks kind of yellow, the chair is yellow, the white walls are yellow because the light from the ceiling is yellow and it's pointing down. Even though I'm looking outside where it's all natural light, it looks a little bit off. So I'm going to kind of tweak that and make it look more natural. This I took in my room, actually like right there. I can't decide about the lighting. Since it is natural light, it's still a little bit weird. I can't figure out whether or not I want to post it, but maybe we'll play with that one and see how it comes out. This one is like perfection. Natural light, everything. Honestly, it already looks edited, but this isn't. This is like goals. We really want our photos to look like this before we start editing. That would be the dream. There are just a few things I would kind of minor tweaks I would make, but that's amazing. This is one of the examples I showed you guys on my story. I would obviously go into Retouch and remove some of these things and kind of clean this up. And then I also removed the sink on my story, but for the most part, natural light looks really good. It's just a little bit dark and a little bit too indoorsy creamy, so I would just brighten that up a little bit. So maybe I'll use this one as an example too. This one also has natural light. I would go in and retouch and just remove a few things, but this one would be super easy to edit. This is a photo I took in Miami. This would also be pretty easy to edit. There's a lot, obviously natural light. I usually don't shoot in direct sunlight, but in Miami there are fewer options for like the indoorsy cute places that I usually shoot in New York. So on the beach, this is kind of one of the other examples I'll do. This is another example from Miami. It's indoors, super dark, but this would actually be pretty easy to edit because there's no crazy like colors, overhead lighting. This one was pretty simple. This was a photo I kind of wanted to post just as like a silly thing, but there was a yellow street light and honestly it was just way too hard to edit. It was impossible with the blue light in the sky and the yellow on me. It just would not come out natural, so avoid that at all costs. If you're going to do night photos, I really like doing flash just because it kind of balances out your skin tone and makes it match more of your other photos that are in daylight a little bit better. Here's another photo at that same location that's actually from my Airbnb experience. So this photo, I don't know why it's so like contrasty. Yeah, but the background's neutral. Like you can edit all of this to make it look a little bit less like grimy and more smooth. So let's get started with an example. First, I always start out in Lightroom, so we're gonna go there. Okay. So these are some photos I have in Lightroom. We're going to add another photo from my camera roll. So let's take our indoor example first. For this, I always start out with the light. it depends on the photo, but for this I would raise the exposure a little bit. I don't like it to be too shadowy. And then I always lower the contrast. I feel like that adds to that like creamy, smooth, natural effect people are going for. Highlights I usually bring down just to make sure things like the super white areas are in focus. So I'll do that. Shadows, depending on the photo, I'll either raise or lower. This, they're already pretty high, so I'm just going to keep it a little bit lower. And I don't have any set rules for this. I usually just play around. So it's on the first tab in Lightroom, it's exposure up, contrast down, highlights down, shadows up a little bit. And then whites I'll bring down, and blacks, it really depends on how the photo looks, but I'll make sure that there are some pure blacks in the photo, but most things we don't want. Usually I'll raise the warmth up, but since the lighting inside that room is so yellow-orange, I'll usually bring it down. So on temperature, on the second tab, we are going up a little bit, and depending on the photo, sometimes I'll play around with the vibrance or saturation, but this I feel like I'm fine with. Then when I go into color, this is like the most important section for me. I always start with the yellows. I feel like that's what usually like spoils a photo for me. So what I would have done before in my old editing days is to move the saturation all the way down and the luminance all the way up. But now I like to have a little bit of yellow, so I just want it to be less like there's an orange light on my face. So that's probably like a good at -25. And then I raise the luminance up a little bit so it looks more white. As you can see, we already got rid of some of that yellow. Orange I will go into to make sure my skin doesn't look too oversaturated. So I usually bring the saturation down on that, and depending on how it looks in the photo, I'll bring the luminance down and it gives you kind of like a natural tan that way. This is maybe a little bit too dark, so I'll go like here. So I really just play around with it based on the thing. Green, there's not really any green in the photo I want to play with. Blues will impact, as you can see, like how it looks outdoors. So obviously before I definitely would have brought that all the way down, but now I think just a little bit of like a natural sunlight going on. Looking at this, the pinks on the chair, maybe it's yellow. It's a little bit of yellow. Maybe I'll bring the yellow a little bit down more. Yeah, so as you can see, before super yellowy inside, it has that like artificial light coming down, and then I just brighten it up a little bit, make it look a little bit more natural, and if you want it to be a little bit like creamier, you can probably play with the warmth to add that a little bit. And I don't really like to add grain. I think maybe this is now too much skin orange. Yeah. So this looks good to me. So I'll export that now. And then I go into Retouch, where I'll mess around with some of the things. Let's see. Quick repair. Like I probably just get rid of like little stuff like that just to clean it up. Sometimes I remove people who we don't need there. I think it's like the little things like that that kind of add up to just an overall cleaner photo. This can get messy. Retouch is the best for this if you guys are looking for an app like this. Okay, that looks cleaner. I'd say this looks pretty good overall. Yeah, I'm happy with this. I'd probably crop my leg there. So we save that, and now I go into Facetune. So now that we're in Facetune, I actually just want to crop the bottom of my leg out there. I don't know why, it's just kind of bothering me. So you need to make sure you have Instagram dimensions that you're kind of already thinking about, and not keeping yourself like too high or low in the photo, because then Instagram's going to crop you out. So I'll go into smooth and make sure some of like the more like pixelated areas, this photo is okay actually, but like making sure pixely areas are smoothed out, either on my hair or on my face, sometimes on my clothing, just making sure it looks a little bit higher quality and it doesn't look as like grainy from your iPhone. So I just go in and like do a little bit here and there. That looks good to me. I'll go in and add details. I usually do. I used to do this way too much. I'll go in for my eyelashes a little bit, eyebrows, sometimes jewelry. Or if I have like cool details on my outfit, I'll do that too. This I don't really need. Okay, how's this looking? It's all like super subtle things in here, so that's kind of what I'll do here. Okay, that looks good to me, so I'll export from Facetune, and then now I go over into Instagram. Okay, so now I'm in Instagram. I will open it up, get it where I want it to be, and then usually this is where I kind of go back to edit even more, and I don't know, maybe I'm like reverting everything I did before, but I'll turn my brightness up all the way so that I can make sure I'm seeing it properly. Usually I'll make it a little bit brighter. This contrast looks okay to me, but usually I'll lower that. Sometimes I'll play with the warmth. I feel like I'm happy here. I always do like 1 or 2 on the shadows and highlights of blue. Honestly, not sure why. I saw that in a YouTube video like years ago and I've just done it ever since. I just make my like final tweaks on here with shadows and highlights, usually always actually bringing highlights down, shadows up a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. Maybe it's a little bit too bright, like it doesn't look natural anymore. And then the filter I always use is Ludwig, so I only do it just a tiny bit. I feel like it gives you a little bit of a glow. And then with this Luxe tool, I usually bring it down just to make it a little bit creamier. So this is the end photo. Let me put it just side by side right now with the beginning photo so you guys can see. Okay, so this is the photo we started with, and this is what we ended with. As you can see, it's got a lot less of that yellow, but it still looks super natural. Like, it looks like you could have just walked up and taken this. It doesn't look hyper edited in my opinion. It's really hard to get like the skin tone right when you have that type of lighting, so this is kind of what I do. Now, back in Lightroom, we're going to do an outdoors photo to see how it's a little bit different with the blue sky. So this is a photo from Miami. I'm probably going to crop, I don't like feet. I'm just going to crop my feet. Oops. I'm just going to crop my feet a little bit and make sure it's like a good Instagram dimensions. Okay. Maybe I'll move in a little bit more. Okay, this looks cute. So I always, again, start by raising the brightness a little bit and bringing the contrast down. I don't want my pants to look like too, like a black hole, kind of. That looks pretty good to me. I'll always bring the highlights down just because I feel like it makes your skin look a little bit better. And then shadows is mostly impacting the pants here, so I don't want the black pieces in my image to be 100% like pitch black. We want them to be a little bit lighter, but not too much. Like, if you go too much, then it starts to look like this, which is kind of freaky. And a lot of presets will do that to your photos. So I just raise it a tiny bit like that. And then whites down to make sure they are crisp and clear. And then you can just mess with the black pieces specifically. Like, that looks good. So already you can see, just by playing with the light tab, this is a little bit glowier and brighter. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So now, like, a lot of presets will also do like this, and they'll make your photo super orange. So I like to have it warm, but just a tiny bit warmer. So like 2 or 3. I don't really touch the tint unless my photo's like going crazy. This, I might raise the vibrance a little bit just because I'm starting, it's like a beach photo, I'm starting to look a little dull. And saturation I'm fine with for now. So then we go into the color mix part, and there aren't really any reds I want to mess around with here. Yellows, I'm always really careful on a beach because I don't want the sand to look unnatural, but I want to keep that like yellowish glow on it, but I don't want it to be too yellow. So I bring the saturation down a little bit, so I have it to -13 here, and then luminance, I want to bring it up just to make sure my overall feed has a whitish look to it and it's not getting like too dark. Although you could on this one, depends how you want to go. So this still looks natural. It still looks like that's how the sand could be. There's like a green hut thing in the background that's kind of bothering me. So if there's a color I fully don't want, we can just zoom in here to look at this. If there's a color I fully don't want, I'll just lower the saturation all the way and turn the luminance up just so it kind of blends in a little bit more. So let's see. Yeah, you can see the green there is just kind of blending in, disappearing a little bit. Now for the blue. This is something I really struggled with for so long. I used to edit it like this, where I would like be like, oh yeah, the sky was that color naturally, but I think that's so dumb. I don't think that's realistic. This looks pretty good for me. I usually, like, this is too much. I will bring the saturation down to where it just looks like a nice creamy sky, and then raise the luminance up a little bit so it blends in. That looks pretty good. And then I go into orange for my skin tone. I look pretty tan here, depending on how I want to go. Usually I'll just mess around with it a little bit where it looks natural. But I don't want my skin to be like this, kind of like most presets do. So I just want it to look fully like that's how the photo was. Okay, this looks pretty good for me. So orange, I went to -5 and I went to +15. I think that looks pretty natural. So this is the before, and after here, it's just a little bit brighter. We got rid of some colors. We made it a little bit warmer, creamier, and brightened up some of the shadows around me. So let's export this. And we're gonna go over to retouch. I don't know why. You can do retouch at any part you want, but I always just do it after I finish color editing. So here I just go through and like take out little weird things that are bothering me. Like this hair. This part's like fully up to you guys how much you want to take out. That looks pretty good. This hair is kind of weird, but I'm fine with that. If there's anything like lying in the beach, I would just get rid of that. Anything too strange. It's kind of tough once you start editing near your skin. Okay, that looks good to me. Maybe I'll get rid of this sign. That's honestly close enough. I would just do stuff like that to get rid of little things. And let's modify that. And then we're going to bring it into Facetune just to make sure everything is a little bit smooth. Okay. So here, as you can see, my hands are super pixely. I think it's just because I'm so far away in this photo, but I just go through and make sure it's a little bit smoother so it looks like it was taken on a higher quality camera. Just doing that a little bit. Okay, and so here I really want to focus on the details of my swimsuit and my necklace and the shorts. So I'll go in with the detail tool and just kind of like, I'm literally just like dabbing around. Here, I'll go here to make sure that you can see the detail. And then my bracelets maybe too. And the hands. Okay, so it doesn't make a huge difference, but this is kind of how that looks. I feel like it just enhances it a tiny bit. So I'm good with that. Let's save it to camera roll, and then I'm going to go back to Instagram for the final edits there. And I do the same thing for each photo really here. So now we're in Instagram, kind of play with the brightness, bringing it up. Contrast really depends again on the photo, but I'm going to bring it down to 6 here. Warmth could go up a little bit. So you see these are super tiny changes, but I feel like they do make a difference. Saturation looks okay. I did up 1 just because, again, doing the blue a little bit in the shadows and highlights. And then I go over to Ludwig and I put it, this one honestly it could go up to like 5 and be happy with that. And then I bring Luxe down just to make sure, like if you go all the way up on Luxe, it starts to give it that like grimy look. So I like to bring it down just a smidge to make sure it looks good. This looks good to me as is. I'm happy with that. It's a little bit less contrasty. The colors are muted just a tiny bit and it looks pretty natural to me. Let's do another inside one that has natural lighting. I'm going to take this photo and let's see, it's inside, there's natural light, but it is kind of yellow. So again, I'm going to start with the exposure. I think it's almost fine, to be honest, at this where it is now, so I'm actually going to leave it. Contrast, my sweater is super dark and my hair looks pitch black, so I'm going to bring it just down maybe to like -8. Highlights I bring down so that things like that part of my face aren't getting like too bright, they stay neutral. Shadows here, I don't want to bring up too much because I don't want my sweater to start to look like that, so I will bring it up just a tiny bit to where you can see a little bit of the detail on the black, but it's not like, it's not black anymore. Whites we're going to bring down to keep everything neutral and not like too cool stark white and black. And then blacks again you can just play with, but I don't want it up too much. It's already pretty warm in here, so I'm going to bring it down just a little bit to 2 maybe. And then I'm going to leave everything else on the color tab as is, but I'm going to go into mix and start to play with the colors. So again, I always start with yellow. I don't know, it's just kind of my base. This is what I would have done before, where I make it like super contrasty, and that actually doesn't look that bad, but in order to get the creamy feed, you don't really want that, and once you start to do that, it makes all these like weird clumps on the wall, so I don't want that. We'll keep our luminance. We want to go down on the yellow a little bit, but not enough that it turns into pure white, just maybe like that much, and then raise the luminance a little bit to the point where you want it. So already you can see we went from like these inside yellows maybe to a creamier, lighter, dreamier kind of look. So let's go back into the colors. Blue, there's nothing really blue here, so we don't need to mess with that. The only other thing is my skin. So here it looks a little bit too orange for my taste. So I brought the saturation down 6, and then I can go luminance down 8. And I think that looks pretty good. This looks super natural. So you can see on my face, even just zooming in here, it's super like stark contrasty, but then I've made it a little bit softer. Even though it keeps all the same colors, it's just a little bit more of that like dreamy look. You can see when I go out here, it's not a preset, but they all still kind of go together, even though they're all different types of lighting, which is the big thing. So let's export this now, and I want to go into Retouch and get rid of a lot of that stuff in the background. So we're going to open this up. Don't want that, don't want that, don't want that. That I'll probably end up cropping out. I got rid of the sink. I'm a little bit crazy, so I'll go in and edit a ton of things that probably don't need to be edited, but I will do things like fixing the smudge on my face and on my body, and then, whoops, and then also then fixing my skirt a little bit because that line is bothering me. So my camera died and that didn't get filmed on here, but I'm going to show you what I did in Retouch. I removed the flag and a bunch of the little like things around the corner of the counter and these dots behind my head. Then there was a smudge on my face that I removed the big chunks of just to get rid of some of the like messiness of this photo. Then just random like dots on the walls, mostly just to get this a little bit cleaner. I'm going to end up cropping this part out, so I'm totally fine with how that is, even though it's not perfect. So exporting that, then we're going to go back into Facetune. Now in Facetune, I'm just going to go again and make sure pixelated things are smoothed out, and I can kind of get rid of the, especially on my phone case and my fingers, I can get rid of the smudge this way too. Okay. Oh, my leg. Let's fix that. Okay, so that makes it look a little bit better. Let's save that. Now I'm going to go into details. There are these fun little buttons on the side of my skirt, so I drew over those. Necklace, headband, phone, maybe eyes a little bit, not too much. That looks good. Okay, let's crop this so that it looks good for Instagram dimensions. I actually don't want that brown thing. This looks pretty good to me. Okay. That looks perfect. So saving to camera roll, and now we're going to go back into Instagram. Oops. Okay, here we are. Again, I'm going to brighten it up just a tiny bit and bring the contrast down a little bit more, but then my skin got washed out, so I don't want to go too much, but just raise it a little bit. I think the warmth is fine where it is right now. I'm going into blues again, doing 1 and 1. Highlights, I guess I could bring them down a little bit here. I don't want this image to be too dark compared to the other ones in my feed, but I lowered it a little bit just because it's clear it's inside. Shadows, we want to go up a bit to soften it, and then Lux, we want to go down. So I think 6 looks good here. So you can see it, even in Instagram, I like to do a little bit to make it warmer and turn down the contrast because it's just like a little bit too harsh from there. And then I always just go into Ludwig, I feel like just out of habit, and do somewhere under 10. Like 4 looks good. Yeah, so that's the finished photo. I feel like it has that warm, natural look, and honestly, this looks like you could have just taken it on your phone now without doing any editing. And that's what I really want for my photos, is that whole like no editing look. It's really, really, really hard to figure out what works for your skin tone, your hair color, and stuff like that. And each photo is going to be totally different depending on the lighting and where you take it and your outfit and all of that. But that's just kind of a general idea of what I do. And you guys, also, somebody asked on Instagram how to get like a consistent feed and overall vibe, so I'm just going to show you what my UNUM looks like quickly. So I use this to plan out my photos ahead of time. It'll show you your photos now, so I posted that one so I can delete it. this is like a sneak preview of stuff that hasn't been posted on my page yet. Yeah, so this is kind of what it looks like. So if I just did a photo, I will import it here to see what it looks like next to the other ones. Okay, so they went in towards the next ones I'm planning to post. So you can see, based on the way I edited it, they already kind of match with what's in my feed. The colors are consistent, and you can play around in UNUM to make sure. Honestly, these I would post these right now. Like, these look like they go perfectly. I try to balance out like detail photos or how close your body is in them to make sure it's spaced out. Like this photo, I'm a little bit closer, or if you have like a filler photo, making sure they're spaced out on the page. So these three actually look pretty good. I have a little bit of blue in my feed right now, so I just try to make sure to put a little bit of blue in maybe every like 4th or 5th photo. And then yeah, these look so natural. I'm like actually mind blown. Yeah, I think it goes really well. This one was the indoor photo, this was the outdoor one, and this was like indoors without any nature and just natural light. So even if you have different lighting, you can make them all work together. I really try to get just natural light if possible and not in direct sunlight, just to get this kind of vibe, but you can really work with whatever you have. So I always plug them in here. If something like this one maybe still has a little bit of too much yellow, or my skin looks a little too orange, I'll go back and make sure I edit it before I post, and then just plug it back in here to make sure it looks good with everything else. So just to summarize for you guys to see if this kind of works for you, you can copy this template here of instructions on how to edit photos. The 3 apps I use mostly are Lightroom and Facetune and Retouch, and those are like the 3 holy grails for me. So I use those 3, and then I will upload into Instagram and do a little bit more. All of these I kind of like play around with. There's no like strict rules to it, but that's kind of what I do. I know a lot of people use Visco and do M5 for a little bit, and I think it kind of achieves a similar effect, but I just kind of like being in control and messing around with these myself. So that's really what I do for my photos. I do mostly the same thing for every type of photo, but again, playing around with the exposure, the contrast really depends, whether it's an inside outside photo, direct sunlight, indirect, whether it's dark or light, whether you're wearing like all white. Like right now you can see this shirt is a white shirt, but it looks kind of blue, so sometimes I'll bring that down a little bit just so it looks less blue in this lighting and looks closer to white. But it's all about playing around and seeing how things work with your complexion and your skin tone and all of that, because it makes a huge difference. My camera keeps dying. I literally don't know why, so I'm just gonna film on my phone now. Yeah, that is the overview of how I edit my photos. If you guys have any questions at all, you can DM me or email me or comment below. My Instagram is HerseyKiss, and you guys can find me there. Thanks guys, have a great day. Bye.